Folks, this is where I started with Andrew, way back when with Andrew's Essential1, and I greatly enjoyed the last time Andrew was in St. Petersburg. Andrew, you had a real comparison chart showcasing, because there's a lot of us out there that take a multivitamin. And if I ever see anybody out there taking one, I always ask them, well, what are you taking? Have you thought about Andrew Lessman's Essential1? For somebody that wants a multivitamin, when we say the words, the best in the world, we mean it on every level.
Yes, and what's so great about Essential1 is how easy it is to show how objective, meaning that no matter what whether you're prejudiced, whether you're biased, just objectively, we're going to talk about facts. We don't need any alternate facts or alternative facts, whatever they call them. So if you just look at the facts here, it's a small, easy to swallow capsule versus these enormous horse pills that are difficult to swallow.
They are.
The ultrafine powder that dissolves instantly, making it available for absorption and helping you, versus a large tablet that might not disintegrate, might not be beneficial, and will most certainly upset your stomach. So just objectively, just even without even trying the product, just looking at one versus the other, that capsule is preferential. In fact, there's a lot of medications on the market now that even though they're still in tablets, what they do is they coat them with gelatin,
right,
and they call them like a tabsule or whatever it is, a caplet. They make them look like capsules because they know that consumers, like us, we prefer capsules. I'm someone who, I don't make any products in tablets because I can't tolerate swallowing tablets. If I had a handful of capsules and one tablet in with them and I took it,
right,
the one tablet, whatever, 10 seconds later will still be in my mouth. The capsules will go away. They'll just slide right down. So tablets are just, I bet I know your next question, they're cheaper to make.
Okay.
They're cheaper to make, they're easier to make. You throw in a bunch of additives, you mix it up, you put it in the tablet, you die. Plus, you take materials, in many cases, that are living materials like friendly fluoro or things like that, and you compress them under tens of thousands of pounds per square inch of pressure with these additives to make them stick together, because you have to add glue to the tablet because it's not sticking together on its own. Then you typically coat it. Then you sometimes coat it with sugar, which most of the leading multivitamins, if you read their label,
right,
they have sweeteners and sugars in them. Why? Because they want you to like the taste of that tablet in your mouth. They have artificial colors in it. Why? Because they think you won't like the vitamin as much as if it isn't a pretty yellow or orange or pink or green. They think you want it to be, I mean, mine are pretty boring. You know,
boring is good in tablets. I like it.
Theirs are, you know, have pretty colors. You know, mine does not. And I'll open this capsule, which is it's a soft capsule, easy to swallow, and it's just an ultrafine powder. It contains a lot of material. And the other thing is, with my Essential1, and again, it's the idea of being additive free of additives, that even though that capsule isn't a big capsule, because we don't have a lot of other stuff in there, you get more of what you want. You look at all the key nutrients, whether it's the B complex or B12 or biotin, you look at my product and you're getting multiples more. Most of the leading brands don't have lutein, zeaxanthin, or lycopene. None of them have zeaxanthin. Most of them have either none or trace amounts of lutein or lycopene. We give you real levels of all these ingredients. So it's one of those products that if you want to see the difference between how I go about making a product and how the other guys do, yeah, it's the best exercise in the world. And maybe what I should do almost, we might be going to shoot some videos that we'll leave on the website. Maybe I'll take a bottle of one of those leading brands and just discuss the difference between my Essential1 and theirs. And I would say I almost feel guilty comparing our product to theirs because my product has nothing to do with what theirs is.
Right.
We might both contain some vitamins and minerals, but our B12 is in a form, B12 is typically not absorbable when you introduce it through your mouth. We created a new form of B12 to make it absorbable. First of all, ours is the natural coenzyme form that your body uses, theirs is not. And ours is protected from stomach acids, so it bypasses your stomach, so it can be absorbed in the small intestine and benefit you. And almost every ingredient in my multivitamin has that kind of a differentiating story because we want the product to work for you at the right level, in the right form, and of course, in a dosage form that's going to work.
So if I can be so bold to really ask anybody out there that's maybe just channel surfing, just finding us for the first time, maybe you've never seen Andrew Lessman before, if you are currently taking a multivitamin, I would ask you to just stop for a second. Maybe it's Centrum, maybe you've taken it for years, and consider taking Andrew's multivitamin. When you do a side-by-side comparison, there is no comparison. Even if out of this entire 2-hour show, the only thing you do is say, all right, I'm going to do the multivitamin. I know it's good for me. I know it's a good decision to make. You will not be disappointed. For anyone out there that's ever said, I can't possibly take a supplement because it's heavy on my stomach, Andrew's explained that. The rock hard tablets versus these ones.
Plus, what we do is, I look at the most common question I have to answer in my reviews. I should probably put a disclaimer on the website. We don't pull out the bad reviews. This is a product that, a multivitamin of all things, is 95% positive reviews, almost 85% 5-star reviews. For a super, high potency multivitamin in a single capsule, that's remarkable, and I think most people find it a little bit incredible or not believable, but it is. It's just, as I said before, I don't do it the way everybody else has been doing it. If you look at 99% of the multivitamins purchased and consumed in America, they're tablets.
Yep.
They come with artificial colors and all sorts of other binders and fillers. They have relatively low levels of key nutrients, and they all contain the same forms of those nutrients. Everybody basically does kind of a carbon copy of everybody else. Maybe it's a little bit different color tablet, maybe it's a different shape tablet, but they're all basically the same. And then even more, if you don't buy Centrum or One A Day, whether you go to Walmart or Costco or wherever it might be, they have their version of those multivitamins made by a contract manufacturer who has the exact same formula using different colors, whatever it might be.
Right.
That's the exact same formula where they'll even tell you to compare it to One A Day Women or compare it to Centrum for men over 50. That they're basically all doing the same thing, which is just, and they're just happy to capture some sales because they're on 100,000 store shelves in America. And I'm just a little tiny brand that's on a shopping channel on a website here. So again, as I said, I don't have a small advertising budget. I have no advertising budget. So it's sort of funny, but.
Well, you are the walking advertisement. Yeah. Every single person that's a part of Andrew's family, as it were. Our
product is our advertising budget. And that's what's stood us well over 38 years.
Gosh.
Long before I was ever on a TV shopping channel, whatever that was, 26, 27 years ago, we were growing, and again, simply growing by word of mouth.
Right.
And I guess because I didn't have shareholders and a board of directors that wanted profits and this and that, I was able to continue growing patiently as the company grew. And I had another job initially because I wasn't going to push the growth of the company or take in investors or things like that or compromise the quality of the products. So I've been steadfast in that regard, and even to this day, here we are 38 years later, the reason why there's solar panels in the parking lot and solar panels in the roof, the reason why we give away 2 bottles of prenatal vitamins for every bottle of vitamins that you get, we can do that because I don't have shareholders and I don't have a board of directors, and I get to do these things. My products are the star, and I make great products that get wonderfully reviewed, which is when anyone sees me out and about, they don't tell me how wonderful I am. They tell me how wonderful my products are. Real celebrities, they're told how much everybody loves them. They love my products, and I'm happy with that.
But you have delivered something, Andrew, that is virtually impossible to do. There is a trust. I trust you. I trust the words that you say. And as you said, when people watch TV, typically there's a healthy skepticism, but you've managed to combat that because it is truthful.
No, I think, well, first of all, I've been doing this on TV now for almost 27 years. I've been making products for 38 years. But I think the real reason is I'm inherently skeptical myself. So because I'm inherently skeptical, I think people deserve real facts and real information, so they're not going to be skeptical just as I would be as if I was watching me. Plus, and I'm not sure if my parents are watching now, hopefully they're not, because I used to always criticize this about them, but they gave me a really healthy humility as a child. No matter how well I did on something, they were not impressed. So I grew up thinking that I always had to do my very best. And it was all a byproduct of not results, but how much I was committed to my work. That was what was important to them. How much I invested in terms of work, not how great my results were. So I think my parents gave me a very, very healthy dose of humility, that as they have numerous things that they used to say, that everyone puts their pants on one leg at a time.
There you go.
You know, that everyone goes potty, and so no matter how famous they are, no matter how whatever they might be in their world. So we're all just human beings. So, and we all try to do, hopefully, the best we can and deliver in some fashion value to other people.
One of the things that I do encourage you to do is to check out Andrew's blog. I know you put a lot of time and effort into your blog, and it gives you a chance to say things that you don't say here.
I wish I could. I wish I was working less, so I had more time to write more, because I love doing that. But I typically only write things for the blog in advance of the visits. But oftentimes I'll write things on other topics that I have my opinions about lots of different things. I try to stay not political, because I think that political world, all it does, I should have mentioned this when we were talking about valerian and stress and things, because all that political world does is make us crazy. Yeah. And no matter which side of the aisle you're on, as I always say, we all have our little sphere of influence. And I think to the extent we could focus on our health, our well-being, that of the people we love, focus on our job and all of that, keep ourselves in a little world, then where we have influence, where we act, we could see the impact of what we do. If we worry about what's going on and certainly it's worrisome, whether it's in North Korea or Afghanistan or Syria, Lord knows we could lie awake at night and never have a moment's peace. So we have to remember, I wrote this in one of my blog posts, it's that it's a prayer. I think that's something that AA, the folks at AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, often talk about. What is it that we change the things we can, we accept the things we can't, and most importantly, we know the difference. So the things we can change and act upon in our world, we do our best to change. But then we have to recognize the things that are out of our control, and we have to find a way to accept them and find peace with them. No,
it's a wonderful way to live. I mean, right there. Right. It's important. Folks, bear with us. I know we are racing through as much as we can. We
didn't even talk about cinnamon.
I know, this is such an important one as well.
And cinnamon's important because, and when I talk about weight loss or weight gain or weight management, what I generally talk about is how we need to blame our ancestors. We inherited genes that were designed to survive really well in a world of scarcity. So we now live in a world of abundance where if I had a cell phone here, I could call and have any one of 100 different restaurants deliver food here. Or we could go to any one of grocery stores. It's just, we live in a world of abundance where most of the foods are too rich in calories and not rich in nutrition. So the problem we have with overweight and obesity and the impact that has on our ability to manage our blood pressure, and in this case, manage our blood sugar, it's devastating to the health of our country. And for decades, I was asked about an ingredient that might be able to help with managing blood sugar metabolism and helping us with our insulin metabolism. And cinnamon was really the first. And that was about 4 or 5 years ago. So cinnamon extract is really the first. It's a wonderful ingredient. Show it to your doctor, because many of us, I think the #1 class of drugs that have actually exceeded the statin drugs for cholesterol are now the drugs that help us deal with type 2 diabetes, which is really an epidemic in our society. It affects our cardiovascular health. It affects our cerebrovascular health. It affects our eye health. It's just something that's devastating to the overall health of our country. So to the extent we can lose weight, to the extent we can improve our lifestyle, what we eat, and do the right things to give us back a bit of control over our blood sugar and our insulin metabolism, that's a positive thing. And cinnamon is an exceptional tool in that regard. It's one of our most, I think, perfectly reviewed products.
I've read so many different things about when we're eating our meals, whether we should be consuming drinks at the same time. Some people say you should drink before or after, but not during a meal. Is that true?
You're not talking about alcoholic beverages.
No, just normal water.
Yeah, I think it's normal for us to hydrate when we eat. What some people are talking about is sometimes when we hydrate too much, we dilute the hydrochloric acid.
Right.
Many of us, as we get older, even though we suffer from GERD or gastric esophageal reflux disease, and we feel like our stomachs are more acidic, actually, our stomachs are more sensitive, and oftentimes we're not secreting enough acid. What I always say with things like that, in terms of choosing your diet, as long as you're not eating like synthetic foods, as long as you're eating healthy foods, listen to your body. Right. Develop a relationship with your body where you listen to how your digestive system functions. What I really say in terms of both weight loss and health, keep a food diary. it's really easy to do with smartphones now. Heck, you can take pictures of everything you eat before you eat it. So you have a record of what you've eaten and the quantities you've eaten. That's the most important thing we could do, is really have that kind of an awareness. A lot of us, we're so busy, we're so crazy, we just forget about what we're sort of brain dead. We're kind of robots when we're shoving food into our face, and we forget how important that is. That is, even depending on the doctors you might read or the experts you might read, most of them will say, at a minimum, that over half of the major health issues we suffer from in life, whether it's going to be cancer or heart disease, things like that, is diet and lifestyle related. Some will say over 80%. And I'm more on that 80% side. So we, again, have incredible power. What I wanted to show quickly on the berberine, because berberine is an ingredient that's closely related to curcumin. But berberine, like curcumin, originally it was an herb, but it's, look how bright yellow color that is. And it was also used for coloring. And there's no real need for synthetic dyes and colors when you see how bright turmeric is. Turmeric is bright orange, that berberine is bright yellow. And even if you look at our fruitful antioxidants product, it's bright purple. There's all sorts of natural choices if you want to color a product that they don't have to use, like all the multivitamins out there, most of them contain yellow number 5 and yellow number 6. Berberine is in tiny concentrations is an incredibly rich, bright yellow color.
It's interesting seeing how things have changed, and I think we as a society are maybe more informed than we used to be, that we kind of expect a little more than we used to do as well, you know? Right. We want to spend a few moments here, which is on Andrew's always popular Ultimate Whey.
It's May. A lot of folks focus on weight loss now because summer is coming.
Indeed it is.
We have our secure meal replacements. We make secure meal replacement with soy protein, whey protein, and even marine collagen protein. But what I just wanted to show was our protein powder. A lot of folks start working out more and they're, say, reducing their caloric intake. They still want to make sure they're getting quality protein. This is the highest quality protein you'll find anywhere. It also, I'll show you in a moment, mixes with water. But you won't find another protein product like this. It's, as you look at just this chart right here, it's 10 grams of whey protein isolate, which is just a small scoop. That's per serving. There's no fat. There's no trans fat. There's no saturated fat. There's no cholesterol. This, despite it being derived from whey protein, which is a dairy-derived source. No carbohydrate, no sugar. So even folks who are lactose intolerant, you should just try the product. You could return it if it doesn't work for you. But it's got such low levels of sugar that it's considered sugar-free. Low sodium, no added soy. Most whey protein products add soy for solubility, and a lot of people are using whey to avoid soy. No flavors added, no sweeteners added, no artificial ingredients. You add it to a smoothie, you add it to your oatmeal. It almost tastes like you added a little bit of milk, because the only hint of flavor it has is a slight dairy flavor. So in a smoothie, it's wonderful. Even a vegetable smoothie, we'll add it at home. A fruit smoothie, we'll add it at home, or even in your oatmeal. It mixes perfectly, as I'll show you. It even mixes simply in a glass of water. It's good I'm getting my whey protein and my marine collagen peptides here. But where is a scoop? Is there a scoop here?
Why is sodium not good? There's always a big thing around sodium.
And there's a lot of discussion in terms of sodium because not everyone is necessarily sodium sensitive. But sodium is something that in many individuals, increased intake of sodium is associated with a significantly increased rate of hypertension, meaning high blood pressure. But again, it's not a perfect relationship, not a perfect correlation, but in large populations, reducing sodium intake, and there were just some interesting studies on it recently, and they go both ways. But sodium is something that we love the taste of sodium, but we want to make sure that we're like anything. We're consuming, we want it in that healthy level. So we don't want to be consuming too much sodium because sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, these are the electrolytes that should exist in our body in a healthy balance. And again, sodium is something that we should watch our intake of sodium, and when we're like with glucosamine or chondroitin, we don't want sodium, we don't need to be getting extra sodium for our supplements. Let's get the sodium with the foods that we might want it to be more palatable. And again, of course, being moderate. But as you saw, this is a whey protein isolate. I kind of took it for granted. I stirred it for about 5 seconds, and it mixes completely. And the only thing it will taste like it will just taste like a little bit like a hint of milk. Otherwise, no flavor.
And again, please feel free to try it. One of the things that Andrew will always tell you, if you don't like it, you return it and you get all of your money back. So feel encouraged to give it a go.
As you saw, I took 2 scoops, mixed it in about 8 ounces of water, and I just drank it. It's not chunky, everything is in solution, and there's nothing left in the glass. So it's unlike, and that's an incredibly high quality protein. If I could find a higher quality protein, a purer protein, anywhere in the world, we add nothing to it.
So let's head over this way to Cholesterol.
Right.
And I do want to save at least a minute at the end of the show. I have a question for Andrew to
And there was a good
round
question
out.
on Cholesterol amongst the questions that were asked. And so many of the things we're talking about are questions that I've been asked.
Yes.
But if you're taking our Choco Nuvo, each piece of Choco Nuvo is the equivalent of a capsule of Cholesterol.
Okay.
Cholesterol is plant sterols. Choco Nuvo is plant sterol esters. They both have the same effectiveness. They are both at the same level of potency. So it was a question. So you could use them interchangeably. For those of you who like having a piece of chocolate with each meal, then you don't have to have your cholesterol separately anymore. So it's something, they are the exact same mechanism of action, and they both are exceptionally effective at lowering our total cholesterol and our LDL, our bad cholesterol. Many people have told me that they struggle to remember which is good, which is bad. LDL is the bad one. I always say, if you can't remember, just remember lousy. So LDL is lousy. HDL is the good, and you know, people say the VLDL, that's very lousy. So, and HDL is the happy cholesterol.
Right.
That's the one you want high, HDL. So, but in terms of total and LDL cholesterol, you could have a significant reduction. 1 capsule of cholesterol, say with each meal, maybe 2 capsules at a very large meal. All you need to do is take a minimum of 2 capsules daily, and what it can deliver is reductions of 10, 15, 20% or more. There's research clinical studies that show when you combine it with a healthy diet, high in fiber, lower saturated fat and cholesterol, you can get reductions of 40%, which we've seen in many, many reviews.
Andrew, is cholesterol and cholesterol issues associated with a certain time frame in your life where it starts to become more serious?
Not necessarily. Cholesterol in some of us can get worse as we get older, but like most things, as we get older, whatever, say if our numbers are a little out of line when we're young, that deviation becomes more meaningful and more problematic as we get older.
Right.
Certainly, there are a lot of things more important than cholesterol in terms of cardiovascular risk, like our blood pressure, like our blood sugar in my mind, like our overweight and obesity. Cholesterol becomes very meaningful at its extremes when it becomes significantly high. What's wonderful about cholesterol is it can deliver such a significant reduction without side effect. So it could reduce, say if your cholesterol is 225, and it might not be enough to warrant taking a drug or medication, but it warrants concern. And your LDL might be 130, 140 or so. With using cholesterol, you can reduce that, say, by 15 or 20%. All of a sudden, that cholesterol level could be 175, 180, 185, and your LDL can suddenly be 100 to 110, which dramatically will change your doctor's perspective on your cardiovascular risk, particularly in light of if you have other factors in play like blood sugar or blood pressure, things like that. So it's something that's exceedingly effective. It works perfectly, just as Choco Nuvo does, with any cholesterol-lowering drug. The principal ones I think most people take are the statin drugs. Statin drugs work as an inhibitor of the HMG-CoA reductase in the liver. It inhibits cholesterol synthesis. Zetia works on sort of the metabolism of cholesterol in terms of the liver, so in terms of our digestive system. So Zetia is a different mechanism, but again, this